train streaked the windows of the last bus out of town, its tires hissing on wet asphalt as it dropped me at the edge of nowhere. I was Ethan Voss, a 27-year-old data analyst with a knack for missing deadlines and trains, and tonight was no exception. The 11:15 to the city had left without me, stranding me at Greystone Station, a crumbling relic on the outskirts of a town too small to matter. My phone was at 3% battery. The rain was relentless, and the station's ticket booth was shuttered, its glass cracked like a spiderweb. I'd heard Greystone was abandoned years ago, replaced by a shiny new hub 10 miles away, but the bus driver insisted this was my stop. "Last train's gone," he'd said, his eyes avoiding mine. "Wait inside. Something will come." The station was a skeleton of its former self, its platform overgrown with weeds, its roof leaking in steady drips. The waiting room smelled of mildew and rust, its benches coated in dust. A single clock hung above the ticket booth, its hands ticking backward, a soft tock tick that grated on my nerves. I checked my watch, 11:27 p.m. The rain muffled everything else, but I felt watched, like the station itself was studying me that I paced the platform, my sneakers squelching, hoping for a late train. The tracks stretched into the dark, swallowed by fog that rolled in too fast. Then I saw it, a platform across the tracks, hidden behind a rusted signal box. It wasn't on any map I'd checked, and I'd have sworn it wasn't there 10 minutes ago. Its concrete was cracked but clean, untouched by weeds, and a faded sign read Platform 0. No destination, no schedule, just a bench and a lamppost flickering with sickly yellow light that a low rumble shook the ground. A train approached, its headlights dim, its cars a patchwork of peeling paint and fogged windows. It stopped at Platform 0, silent, no hiss of brakes or hum of engines. The doors opened, revealing a dimly lit interior. A figure stood inside, their face shadowed, beckoning me. "Last train," they said, their voice flat like a recording. I hesitated, but the rain was cold, and my phone was dead. I crossed the tracks, the gravel crunching underfoot, and boarded. The carriage was wrong. Seats were mismatched, some plush, some rotted, arranged in no pattern. Passengers sat scattered, their faces pale, their eyes fixed on nothing. One, an old woman in a tattered shawl, muttered, "You're late, but you're here." Another, a man in a suit too big for him, whispered, "Where to?" "Nowhere's fine." Their words were riddles, looping without meaning. I asked where the train was going, but they only smiled, their teeth too sharp in the dim light. The train lurched forward, the windows showing only fog. The clock on the platform was gone when I looked back, and Platform 0 had vanished, replaced by empty tracks. My reflection in the window wasn't right. My face, but older, my eyes hollow. I checked my pockets for my ticket, but found nothing. The conductor, a shadow in a long coat, moved past without a word, his presence chilling the air. I asked a passenger, a girl with braided hair, where we were headed. She handed me a crumpled note. "You've always been here." Hours passed, or maybe minutes. The train's rhythm made time slippery. The passengers spoke in unison now, their riddles blending into a chant. No destination, no return. I stumbled to the door, desperate to get off, but the handle wouldn't budge. The train stopped, and the doors opened to Platform 0 again. Though the station was different, smaller, darker, the clock now spinning backward faster. I stepped out, and the train vanished into the fog, leaving silence that I was alone, or so I thought. Footsteps echoed behind me, too close. I ran, the station blurring, its walls shifting like a dream. When I stopped, I was in my apartment, soaked and shivering, my phone charging on the table. It powered on, showing a ticket stub on the screen. Greystone Station, Platform 0, no destination. I don't remember buying it, but the date is tomorrow, and at night I hear the tock tick of a backward clock. The desert stretched endless and cruel around the ghost town of Calavera, a forgotten cluster of sun-bleached shacks swallowed by dunes. Once a mining outpost in the 1800s, it was now a graveyard of splintered wood and rusted tools, abandoned when the silver veins ran dry. Dr. Lena Marrow, an archaeologist with a knack for chasing lost histories, had come here, chasing rumors. Locals in the nearest town, 30 miles away, spoke of Calavera's Well, a stone circle in the town center, older than the mines, older than memory. They said it whispered, not in English or Spanish, but in a tongue no one could place, offering secrets to those who listened too long. I arrived at dusk on a scorching July evening, the sky bleeding red over the horizon. My Jeep rattled to a stop near a collapsed saloon, its sign dangling like a broken jaw. Calavera was smaller than I'd expected, maybe a dozen structures half buried in sand. The well stood out, its stones dark and smooth, untouched by the desert's decay. It was deeper than it should have been, a black maw that seemed to drink the fading light. My equipment, camera, notebook, audio recorder, felt inadequate against its presence, but I set up camp nearby, determined to document everything. By nightfall, the air was cool, the silence oppressive. I sat by the well, my recorder running, expecting nothing but the wind's low moan. Instead, I heard it, a faint murmur, like voices overlapping, rising from the depths. The words were sharp, guttural, unlike any language I'd studied, neither Navajo nor Spanish, not even the ancient tongues I'd encountered in Mesoamerican digs. I leaned closer, the stones cold against my palms. "Hello," I whispered, feeling foolish. The voices paused, then resumed, clearer, as if responding. My recorder caught static, but my ears heard a phrase repeated, "Una gota de verdad," a drop of truth. That I scribbled the phrase in my notebook, my hands unsteady. I spoke Spanish fluently, but this felt older, raw, like the words carried weight beyond meaning. The voices grew insistent, weaving promises, knowledge of forgotten cities, of stars that no longer shone, of my own past unraveled. All for a drop of truth. I laughed it off, blaming dehydration, but the air grew heavier, the stars dimming above the well. My flashlight flickered, its beam bending toward the well's center, as if sucked inward. The next day, I explored Calavera, photographing warped beams and shattered glass, but my thoughts kept drifting to the well. I found carvings on its inner stones, spirals and jagged lines, like a script no scholar had cataloged. My camera glitched when I aimed it at them, producing images streaked with shadows that weren't there. By noon, my memories felt slippery. I couldn't recall the drive to Calavera, only flashes, headlights on a dark road, a signpost I didn't recognize. My notebook had new pages filled with that strange script in my handwriting, though I swore I hadn't written them. That night, the voices returned, louder, more crowded. They spoke of truths I didn't want. My sister's accident, my father's last words, moments I'd buried deep. I shouted into the well, demanding they stop, but they only laughed, a sound like dry leaves skittering across stone. A drop of truth, they hissed, and I felt a pull like gravity, urging me to climb in. I resisted, but my recorder caught something new, my voice speaking that dead language, as if I'd been answering them all along. But on the third night, I couldn't sleep. The well's whispers were constant, seeping into my dreams. I saw myself standing at its edge, dropping something small, a coin, glinting silver, into its depths. I woke with a start, my hand clutching a coin I didn't remember owning, its surface etched with the same spirals as the well. My notebook was heavier, pages crammed with writing I couldn't read, diagrams of places I'd never seen. My memories were fraying. My childhood home, my first dig, my own name felt distant, like stories told by someone else. Desperate, I stood at the well's edge, the coin cold in my palm. The voices promised clarity, a final truth, if I gave them what they asked. I didn't know what a drop of truth meant, but I was tired, unraveling. I let the coin fall, watching it vanish into the dark. The voices stopped, the silence deafening. I stumbled back to my tent, collapsing as the stars blinked out. I woke in my Jeep, parked on a highway miles from Calavera. My equipment was gone, my notebook blank except for one page. That strange script sprawling like veins. I don't remember driving away, but my hands smell of dust and metal, and sometimes in the quiet I hear whispers, not from the well, but from inside me. The fog clung to the coast like a living thing, thick and gray, swallowing the horizon and muting the crash of waves below. Merrow's Point Lighthouse stood alone on a jagged cliff, its whitewashed tower streaked with salt and age, a solitary beacon in a sea of mist. I, Nora Kellen, had taken the keeper's job on a whim, a 6-week gig to escape the city's noise and my own spiraling thoughts. The agency warned me the place was remote, the fog relentless, but I craved the isolation. At 29, with a stalled career and a breakup still raw, silence sounded like salvation. I arrived at dusk on a Tuesday, the ferryman's face hidden under a hood as he dropped me at the rocky shore. "Mind the fog," he muttered, his voice rough as gravel. "It plays tricks." The lighthouse loomed above, its lamp already spinning, casting a weak glow that barely pierced the haze. The keeper's cottage was a squat stone building beside it, its windows fogged, its air heavy with damp. Inside, I found the basics: a cot, a stove, a radio that hissed static, and a stack of logbooks, their pages yellowed and curling. The first night was quiet, save for the foghorn's low moan, but the light puzzled me. From the tower's lantern room, I watched it rotate backward counterclockwise against every lighthouse I'd ever read about. I checked the machinery, gears and motors older than my grandfather, but found no manual, no explanation. The radio crackled with bursts of noise, not Morse code, but something erratic, like voices garbled by distance. I logged the anomaly, my handwriting shaky in the dim light, and tried to sleep, the fog pressing against the windows like a crowd. By the third day, the fog hadn't lifted. It wasn't just thick, it moved, swirling in patterns that mimicked faces or hands before dissolving. I stopped looking at it directly, focusing instead on my duties, polishing the lens, checking the fuel, logging the weather, always fog, dense, no visibility. The logbooks became my obsession. Entries from past keepers described ships that never docked, vessels with names like Arinder or Sable Wraith, their crews silent, their hulls gleaming with unnatural light. One entry, dated 1923, read, "The sea speaks. It knows my name." I laughed it off, but the words stuck, heavy as the fog. On the fifth night, the radio woke me. A signal pulsed through the static, a rhythmic chant in a language I didn't know, syllables sharp and cold like ice cracking. I turned the dial, but the sound followed, louder, until it felt like it was coming from inside the cottage. I climbed to the lantern room, my breath clouding in the chill. The light was spinning faster, backward, its beam cutting strange shapes in the fog. A mast, a sail, a figure standing on water. I blinked, and they were gone, but the radio kept chanting, and now it sounded like my name. Nora, Nora. The logbooks grew stranger. Entries I hadn't noticed before appeared, written in my handwriting, describing dreams I hadn't had. Me walking the cliffs, me staring into the sea, me waving from a ship I'd never boarded. My memories blurred. I couldn't recall the ferryman's face or the agency's phone number. The fog seemed to seep into my mind, softening edges, rewriting details. I stopped eating, the food tasting of salt and ash. The light's backward spin became a pulse, syncing with my heartbeat. On the 10th night, I saw the ship. It emerged from the fog, its hull black and slick, its sails tattered but glowing faintly, like moonlight trapped in cloth. Figures lined its deck, waving, their faces obscured but familiar, like shadows of people I'd known. I waved back, my arm moving before I could stop it. The radio fell silent, and the light slowed, its beam fixed on the ship. I ran to the logbook, flipping to the latest page. A new entry in my handwriting. Nora Kellen, Captain, arrived tonight. That I stumbled outside, the fog swallowing my screams. The ship was gone, but the logbook was open when I returned, my name underlined. The light spun backward, and the fog whispered, "Stay." The Paramount Theater had been dead for years. Its marquee a skeleton of rusted metal and shattered bulbs, the name barely legible under decades of grime. Tucked in a forgotten corner of downtown, where pawn shops and empty lots outnumber the living, it was a relic of a time when people still gathered to watch stories flicker on a silver screen. I'd driven past it countless times, its boarded windows staring back like blind eyes, but as a film enthusiast with a blog nobody read, I couldn't resist its pull. The rumors didn't help. Whispers of lights flickering inside, of a projector that ran without power, of shadows that moved in the seats. I told myself it was just urban legend, but the thrill of sneaking in, camera in hand, was too good to pass up. It was just past midnight on a cold November night, the air sharp with the scent of frost and asphalt. I parked a block away, my breath clouding as I approached the theater's alley entrance. The door was ajar, its lock long broken, and it creaked open with a sound like a sigh. Inside, the air was stale, thick with dust and the faint tang of mildew. My flashlight beam cut through the dark, revealing a lobby frozen in time. Faded velvet ropes, a ticket booth coated in cobwebs, and posters for movies that hadn't played since the 80s. The last picture show, Unread, its colors bled to grade. I pushed through the double doors to the auditorium, expecting silence, but a low hum greeted me. The rhythmic whir of a projector. A faint glow spilled from the screen, casting jagged shadows across rows of tattered seats. The theater was empty, yet a film was playing, its images flickering in grainy black and white. I froze, my camera dangling from my neck. The screen showed a street I knew too well. The block outside my apartment, captured in eerie detail, down to the cracked sidewalk and the flickering streetlight. A figure walked into frame. Me, wearing the same jacket I had on now, heading toward the theater. My stomach twisted. I hadn't told anyone I was coming here. I raised my camera, snapping photos, but the screen shifted. Now it showed me as a kid, maybe 10, sitting in my old living room, watching a movie with my dad. The memory was real, but the angle was wrong, like someone else had been there, filming us. The reel jumped again, showing moments I didn't remember. Me standing in a rain-soaked alley. Me writing in a notebook I'd never owned. Me staring out a window at a sky that pulsed red. The images felt invasive, like someone had rifled through my mind and stitched together a story I hadn't lived yet. That I tore my eyes from the screen and climbed the stairs to the projection booth, my footsteps muffled by the threadbare carpet. The booth's door was locked, its small window fogged with grime. I pressed my face against it, squinting. Something moved inside. A shadow, too tall, too thin, its edges fraying like smoke. I knocked, my voice hoarse. "Who's there?" No answer, just the projector's hum, louder now, vibrating in my chest. The lock clicked, but the door didn't budge, as if daring me to try again. Back in the auditorium, the film had changed. It showed me now, standing in the theater, staring at the screen. My hand shook as I raised my camera, but the lens showed only static. The seats around me weren't empty anymore. Shadows sat in the rows, their forms indistinct, their heads turned toward the screen. I called out, but my voice was swallowed by the projector's drone. The film cut to a new scene. Me, older, sitting in a dark room, my face gaunt, my eyes fixed on a screen that showed this very moment. The screen went blank, plunging the theater into darkness. I stumbled toward the exit, my flashlight dead, but the doors wouldn't open. A click echoed from a booth, and the projector whirred back to life. The screen lit up, showing me in the auditorium, sitting in the front row, watching the screen. I spun around, heart pounding, but the seats were empty again, except for one. In the front row, a figure sat, its back to me, its silhouette identical to mine that I don't remember leaving. I woke up in my car, parked a block away, my camera gone. The theater's doors were boarded shut, as if they'd never been opened. My blog post about the Paramount never got written. Every time I try, my hands shake and the words feel like they belong to someone else. But last night, I found a ticket stub in my jacket pocket, dated for today, stamped with the Paramount's logo. And sometimes when I close my eyes, I hear the projectors hum, and I see myself on that screen, watching. The fluorescent lights of the 24-hour Save More buzzed like a swarm of dying flies, casting a sterile glow over the empty aisles. It was 11:47 p.m., and the supermarket was a ghost town, save for me. Elliot Crane, night shift stalker, clocked in for another soul-crushing 8 hours. The store sat on the edge of town, a concrete slab surrounded by cracked asphalt and dying streetlights. The kind of place where nobody lingered unless they had to. I didn't love the job, but it paid the rent, and at 22 with no degree in a car that coughed more than it ran, I wasn't exactly swimming in options. Midnight shifts were always quiet, but tonight felt different. The air was heavy, like the prelude to a storm, though the sky outside was clear, studded with stars. The usual hum of the refrigeration units was absent, replaced by a silence so thick it pressed against my eardrums. I pushed a cart of canned goods down aisle 7, stacking peas and corn with mechanical precision. Try to ignore the way the shelves seemed to lean in, their shadows stretching too long under the lights that I'd been at it for an hour when I noticed the first oddity. Aisle 7 was supposed to end at the frozen food section, a wall of glass doors fogged with frost. But tonight, the aisle stretched further, ending in a blank concrete wall where the freezer should have been. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, and checked again. The wall was still there, gray and featureless, like it had always been part of the store. I glanced at my watch, 12:03 a.m. The second hand ticked slower than it should, dragging like it was stuck in molasses. "Elliot, you're losing it," I muttered, shaking my head. Sleep deprivation, probably. I'd pulled a double shift yesterday to cover for Marla, who'd called in sick again. I pushed the cart back toward the stockroom, but the aisles felt off. The signs above, canned goods, cereal, snacks, were in their usual places, but the spaces between them seemed to shift, the gaps widening or narrowing when I wasn't looking. I turned down aisle 9, expecting the usual rows of chips and cookies, but found boxes of cereal instead, their cartoon mascots staring at me with two wide eyes. I stopped, my sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. "What the hell?" I whispered. The store had 12 aisles, numbered clearly, but now aisle 9 was where aisle 3 should have been. I backtracked to aisle 8, only to find it lined with cleaning supplies, aisle 10 stock. My heart thudded, a dull rhythm against the silence. I grabbed my phone to text Dave, the night manager, but the screen showed no signal, just a blinking no service in the corner. Then the intercom crackled. "Elliot Crane, please report to aisle 13 for customer assistance." The voice was distorted, like it had been stretched and warped through bad wiring, each syllable dripping with static. I froze. Save More only had 12 aisles. I'd walked every one of them 1,000 times. There was no aisle 13 that I waited, expecting Dave's usual follow-up, a gruff, "Hurry up, kid," or a joke about me slacking. But the intercom stayed silent, the buzz of the fluorescents filling the void. I considered heading to the break room to find Dave, but the thought of crossing the store, with its shifting aisles and wrong shelves, made my skin crawl. Instead, I pushed my cart toward the front, where the registers sat empty, their scanners dark. The automatic doors were motionless, reflecting the store's interior like twin mirrors. Outside, the parking lot was black, no stars, no streetlights, just an endless void that a flicker of movement caught my eye. In aisle 4, a figure stood halfway down, facing away, their silhouette blurred like a smudged photograph. They wore a long coat, too heavy for the mild October night, and their head was tilted, as if listening. "Hey," I called, my voice echoing too loudly. The figure didn't move. I stepped closer, my cart's wheels squeaking, but when I reached the aisle, it was empty. No coat, no figure, just rose-akin soup gleaming under the lights. My phone buzzed, startling me. The screen was still blank, but a single notification appeared. Aisle 13. Now, no sender, no app, just the words in stark white text. I shoved the phone in my pocket, my hands trembling. "This is stupid," I said, trying to convince myself. "Probably a prank." Dave loved messing with new hires, though he'd never gone this far. I headed toward the back, where the stockroom door loomed, its small window dark. If Dave was there, he'd have answers, but as I passed aisle 12, I saw it, a narrow gap in the wall where the pet food section ended. A new aisle, unlit, its shelves barely visible in the gloom. A sign hung above, hand-painted in uneven letters, Aisle 13. The air grew colder, carrying a faint metallic tang, like old coins. My cart felt heavier, as if the wheels were sinking into the floor. I should have turned back, but something, curiosity, stupidity, or maybe something else, pulled me forward. The intercom crackled again. "Elliot Crane, Aisle 13. Do not keep them waiting." The voice was clearer now, but wrong, like it was mimicking someone I knew but couldn't place. I gripped the cart, my knuckles white, and stepped into the aisle. The fluorescence didn't reach here. The light came from somewhere deeper, a faint blue glow that pulsed like a heartbeat. The shelves were stocked with products, but none I recognized. Jars labeled in looping, unreadable script, their contents murky and shifting. Boxes with no pictures, just symbols that twisted when I stared too long. A can rolled off a shelf, landing at my feet. Its label read, "Elliot's Regret, 16-ounce." I backed away, my breath catching. The aisle stretched longer than the others, its end lost in shadows. Figures appeared at the edges of my vision. Tall, short, some hunched, all vanishing when I turned to look. Their footsteps echoed, soft and uneven, like they were circling me. The intercom spoke again, this time in a whisper that seemed to come from inside my head. "Choose one, Elliot. You always do." I ran, abandoning the cart, my sneakers pounding the floor. The aisles seemed to stretch, the shelves closing in, their contents rattling. Glass clinking, boxes shifting, something wet dripping onto the tiles. I burst out of aisle 13, back in the main store, and the lights flickered, plunging the Save More into darkness for a heartbeat. When they returned, the store was normal again. Aisle 12 led to pet food, aisle 11 to beverages. No aisle 13, no gap in the wall. My car was back in aisle 7, exactly where I'd left it. I checked my watch, 12:03 a.m. Still, the second hand hadn't moved. My phone was dead, its screen cracked like a spiderweb. I stumbled to the break room, expecting to find Dave, but it was empty. His coffee mug sat on the table, cold, with a note scrawled in his handwriting, "Don't go to 13." I searched the store for him, but he was gone. The registers, the stockroom, the parking lot, all emptied. I didn't quit that night. I should have, but rent was due, and I told myself it was just a bad shift, a trick of the mind. The next night, the store was normal, aisle 13 gone, Dave back at his post, grumbling about inventory. He didn't mention the note, and I didn't ask. But when I clocked out at 6 a.m., I noticed my name tag. The plastic was the same, the Save More logo unchanged, but my name, Elliot Crane, was gone. In its place was a single word in that looping, unreadable script from aisle 13, "I still work the night shift." The aisles haven't moved since, but sometimes late at night, I hear the intercom crackle, whisper my name. And in the reflection of the automatic doors, I see a figure in a long coat, standing just behind me, waiting. The town of Eldridge was a forgotten speck on the map, nestled in a valley where the sun seemed reluctant to linger. Its main street, lined with sagging storefronts, ended in a narrow dirt path that wound up to the old clockmaker's shop. The shop was a relic, its wooden facade peeling like dead skin, its sign, Harrigan's Clocks and Curios, barely legible. Locals said Old Man Harrigan had been dead for decades, yet the shop's front window still glowed faintly at night, and the rhythmic ticking of unseen clocks echoed through the fog. No one dared approach after dusk, not since the stories began. Tales of people who entered and never came out, or who returned changed, their eyes distant, their words clipped, as if time itself had rewound their souls. I was new to Eldridge, a freelance journalist chasing rumors for a blog that barely paid. The clockmaker's shop was my latest obsession, a perfect subject for a viral post. I'd heard the warnings, don't go alone, don't go at night, but skepticism was my armor. Besides, I needed the story. My savings were dwindling, and Eldridge was cheap enough to stretch my last few dollars. So, on a chilly October evening, with the sky bruised purple and the air thick with the scent of wet leaves, I hiked up the path, my phone's flashlight cutting through the mist. The shop loomed ahead, its silhouette jagged against the twilight. The window's glow was real, a sickly yellow that pulsed like a dying star. The door, warped and heavy, creaked open at my touch, revealing a room crammed with clocks. They covered every surface, grandfather clocks with cracked faces, pocket watches dangling from chains, cuckoo clocks frozen mid-chime. The air was thick with dust, and the ticking was deafening, a chaotic symphony that seemed to vibrate in my bones. I checked my phone, 7:32 p.m. No signal, but the camera still worked. I started recording, narrating softly about the shop's history, my voice swallowed by the relentless ticking. The deeper I ventured, the stranger the shop became. Narrow hallways branched off the main room, lined with more clocks, their hands spinning erratically or frozen at odd hours. Some had no numbers, just blank faces etched with symbols I couldn't decipher, spirals, crosses, loops that hurt to look at. The air grew colder, the ticking louder, as if the clocks were arguing. I found a staircase descending into darkness, its steps worn smooth. A faint hum, like a heartbeat, pulsed from below. Against my better judgment, I followed it. The basement was a maze of gears and pendulums, some as large as car wheels, suspended from the ceiling or embedded in the walls. The hum was stronger here, vibrating through the floor. At the center of the room stood a massive clock, its face the size of a dining table, its hands made of blackened bone. The symbols from upstairs were carved into its frame, glowing faintly. I felt a pull like gravity, urging me closer. My phone screen flickered, the time now reading 3:17 a.m., though I'd only been inside for minutes. I tried to back away, but my legs felt heavy, as if time itself was anchoring me. That a shadow moved behind the clock. Not a person, not quite, but a shape, tall, angular with limbs that bent wrong. It didn't approach, just watched, its presence making the air feel like syrup. I whispered, "Who's there?" But the ticking drowned my voice. The shadow tilted its head, and the clocks sped up, their hands blurring. My phone died, plunging me into near darkness, save for the glow of the giant clock. I stumbled back, tripping over a pile of gears, and crawled toward the stairs. The hum grew into a low chant, words I couldn't understand but felt in my chest, like a warning that I don't know how I made it out. One moment I was scrambling up the stairs, the next I was outside, sprawled on the dirt path, the shop's door shut tight. The town was silent, the sky still purple, as if no time had passed. My phone was dead, its screen cracked. When I finally got a charge back at my motel, the footage was gone, replaced by a single still image. The giant clock, its hands pointing to 11:11, and a shadow in the corner, its edges fraying like smoke. I left Eldridge the next morning, but the ticking follows me. It's in my dreams, in quiet moments, in the spaces between my thoughts. I checked the town's records. Harrigan died in 1947, but the shop's deed is still in his name, unclaimed. I try to write the story, but every draft feels wrong, like I'm missing something vital. Last night, I found a pocket watch on my nightstand, one I'd never seen before. Its face is blank, but it ticks steadily, and sometimes, just at the edge of my vision, I see a shadow move. What bothers me most isn't the shop or the shadow. It's the time on my phone when I charged it, 11:11 p.m., the same as the clock in the image. I haven't gone back to Eldridge, but I keep the watch. It's still ticking, and every night at exactly 11:11, it chimes, a single clear note that echoes too long. The house on Sycamore Lane chose me, or so it felt when I stumbled across its listing on a glitchy rental site at 3 a.m. I'm Julian Harper, a 32-year-old graphic designer with a habit of chasing impulses, and this one screamed run. The Victoria Mansion's photos showed gabled roofs and ivy-choked walls, its price absurdly low for a place dripping with such gothic allure. The listing vanished minutes after I emailed the realtor, as if it had been waiting for me alone. 2 days later, I stood in its shadow, my duffel bag slung over one shoulder, the air sharp with October frost. The realtor, a nervous woman with darting eyes, handed me the keys and muttered about keeping the attic locked. I nodded, too charmed by the house's stained glass windows and creaking porch to care. That first night, I wandered the sprawling rooms, their wallpaper peeling like old skin, the chandeliers swaying without a breeze. The attic door, tucked at the end of a dim hallway, drew me in, a heavy oak slab, its key already in the lock, as if inviting me. I turned it, the mechanism grinding, and climbed the narrow stairs, each step groaning like a warning. The attic was a museum of neglect, trunks spilling faded letters, a cracked violin missing its strings, and a mirror, tall and oval, its silver frame etched with vines that seemed to pulse in the moonlight streaming through a cracked skylight. I faced it, expecting my tired eyes and messy hair, but the glass showed nothing, just a void, gray and still, like a frozen storm. I shivered, my breath clouding in the chilly air. I aimed my phone's camera at the mirror, but the screen showed a room I didn't know. Stone walls, a fireplace roaring with green flames, a chair that rocked slowly, empty. I blinked, and the mirror was blank again, my flashlight's beam sinking into its depths. I laughed, blaming exhaustion, but the attic felt alive, the air thick with whispers too faint to catch. The next night, I went back. The mirror now showed my old apartment, the one I'd left after a bitter breakup, but the details were wrong. The walls were crimson, not beige, and my books were stacked in patterns I'd never made. I heard my name, spoken in a voice like mine, but softer, colder, from somewhere inside the glass. I stepped closer, my reflection absent, but a shadow moved in the mirrored room, mimicking my stance. It wasn't me. Its posture was too stiff, its head tilted at an angle I couldn't match. Each night, the mirror scenes grew stranger, always tied to my life but warped. One showed me at a gallery opening I'd never attended, my designs on display, but the crowd whispered my name like a curse. Another showed me walking a street I didn't know, my face older, my eyes empty. The mirror's Julian was different, confident, cruel, its smile cutting. I started writing down what I saw, my notebook filling with sketches of places I'd never been, faces I didn't know. My days blurred. I forgot my passwords, missed calls from friends I swore I'd spoken to yesterday. My reflection in the bathroom mirror lagged, moving a fraction too slow on the 8th night. The mirror showed me in the attic, standing where I stood, but the other Julian turned when I didn't, pressing both hands against the glass. Its eyes locked on mine, and the whispers became a voice. "Julian, let me out." I stumbled back, knocking over a trunk, its contents spilling. Letters addressed to me, dated years in the future. I grabbed a tarp from a corner and threw it over the mirror, the whispers cutting off like a snapped thread. The attic shook, dust raining from the rafters, and I ran, locking the door behind me. I stayed downstairs after that, but the house wasn't mine anymore. My reflection appeared in every window, smiling when I didn't, its eyes too bright. Last night, I found my notebook open, a new page filled with my handwriting. You're already here. And now, every window in the house shows it. My reflection, standing in the yard, smiling, waiting for me to look back.